Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite authorities to explore, and that is the Sacral Authority. So stay tuned because by the end of this video, you'll learn the answers to the following questions. What is Sacral Authority? How is Sacral Authority determined? Why is it beneficial to follow your sacral response? When do you use Sacral Authority in real life? And how can you start to recognize and experiment with your sacral authority? And if you enjoy this video and want to continue to learn and deepen your understanding of human design, I invite you to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And with that said, welcome back and Happy New Year, beautiful souls. If you're new here, hi, my name is Crystal Alferrero. I'm a human design teacher, guide, and founder of the Human Design Academy. And I help people like yourselves understand your unique energetic blueprint through the human design system. And just as a quick disclaimer before we dive right into this video, I myself do not have sacral authority, but I'm going to be sharing with you my expertise as someone who has studied human design extensively and has worked closely with hundreds of one-on-one clients and students, with a very large percentage of them having sacral authority, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video for you today. And why should we even talk about sacral authority? Well, approximately 35% of the population has sacral authority, which is exclusive to generators and manifesting generators, who make up around 67% of the population. And even if you're a generator or manifesting generator with emotional authority, you still also have a defined sacral, which is going to play an important part in your decision-making process. So in this video, you can definitely get more insights to really help you understand the nature of your sacral response and how that works with your emotional authority. And once you understand your sacral authority and how it works, you can intentionally begin your own experiment and start to make those most aligned decisions that feel good and that lead you to the most fulfillment and satisfaction and really your most authentic path. Or if you don't have sacral authority like myself, you can better understand your clients or those close to you and be better equipped to support them. So let's just dive in. So what is sacral authority? Well, to first understand what sacral authority is, it's important to understand what authority is and the purpose it plays in your human design experiment. Your authority is a tool in human design that helps you make decisions that are aligned and correct for you. In other words, it's the way that you were designed to connect to your intuition and gain clarity around what is true and authentic for you when it comes to decision making. And if you want more information on what authority is, I have a more detailed video and I'll leave that in the description down for you below. But anyways, going back to sacral authority can be described as having a gut feeling or gut response, or in human design terms, a sacral response that sounds like a uh-huh for a yes or a for a no in the low belly area. And just to demonstrate that, imagine a friend called you to make plans and you pick up the phone. There are a few ways that the sacral can respond to that. Hey, Crystal, do you want to go out tonight? Yeah. Where do you want to go? Hey, Crystal, do you want to go out tonight? I'm kind of good. I'm comfortable on my couch. Yeah. Hey, Crystal, do you want to go out tonight? I don't know. I want to, but there's this thing I have to do and I'm not really sure. So to summarize that, your sacral response is that immediate if it's a yes, or on the other hand, and it's a no, it's either that immediate or even hesitation when you know it's a no, but you likely struggle with setting boundaries and suck at saying no. I've even noticed that the moment you start to try to rationalize your response, that's when your logical mind is kicking in and you're no longer connected to that body intelligence, that sacral. So when that happens, it's a good idea to either re-ask yourself or come back to that question later. And while many experience their sacral authority as sacral sounds, others can experience this as a physical sensation of expansion and opening, or contractions and closing in the gut area. Others can simply feel an excitement and a desire or drive to do something in the moment, as their sacrals really respond to things by generating energy to push them forward. But for most people I've worked with, a lot of them really do resonate with having that gut feeling or gut sound. Lastly, it's also said that if you're a manifesting generator and you have that 3420 defined in your chart, so the channel of charisma, you likely have a sacral sound that's different from the uh-huh or the uh-uh. And it's more of like a verbal yeah or nah. It's directly connected to the throat, so there might be a different verbal response to that. So if you have sacral authority or even a defined sacral with emotional authority, how do you experience or hear or feel your sacral response? Do you resonate with having a gut feeling or gut sound? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments down below. Next, how is sacral authority determined? Well, if you have a defined sacral center with no defined solar plexus, then you will have sacral authority. Therefore, generators and MGs are the only types that can have sacral authority. And that said, if you are a generator or an MG with emotional authority, understanding your sacral and its response is still very much an important part of your decision-making process. You still experience that gut feeling. Therefore, it's important to check in with your gut over time and once you've reached that point of emotional clarity before making a big decision. They also say that if you're a generator or an MG, typically your first gut reaction is correct, but it's by waiting out that emotional wave or asking your sacral, checking in with your sacral over time, while riding that emotional wave, that's when you'll gain more clarity as to what's true and right for you. So if you want to learn more about the emotional authority, I put a link in the description to that video up for you to dive into. So why is it beneficial to follow your sacral response? Well, for generators and MGs, it's so important for them to follow their sacral response because this is quite literally their inner wisdom guiding them and speaking to them. It's really hinting what they have energetic capacity for and what they'd rather not be spending their energy on. And I also like to say it's kind of like, the universe holding that torch and telling you to follow. Whether they act on that hint is another story, but just know that this sacral response is their most reliable, honest, and trustworthy guide to making the most aligned decisions, no matter how big or small. Also, the way that the sacral works is that in order to access their wealth of energy to complete any project or task, the sacral must respond and say yes to something. So when generators or MGs are just kind of doing things for the sake of doing, throwing their energy in all these different places without being guided by the sacral response, things can almost feel like they're just walking uphill or just feel like way more difficult than it should be, especially when you compare it to when they actually are in flow. And they're truly meant to be guided to, really what lights them up, what lights up their sacral. And this is how they can move through life with so much less resistance and with a lot more ease. It really, opens up the path of least resistance when we're following that inner authority, when we're following that inner wisdom, that inner guidance, that intuition. When do you use authority in real life? Your authority can be relied on whenever you make decisions, with an even bigger emphasis on big life decisions, whether it's career decisions, business, relationships, moving homes, anything that tends to elicit a lot of these feelings and anything that will have an impact on your life. Just as an example, if you're a generator or MG and you're inspired by something that you see or hear, you would respond to this thing by leaning into your sacral authority. Do a gut check to gain clarity before acting on it, just to make sure that it's actually aligned to you and it's actually going to take you closer to where you envision yourself to be so that you're not just busy for the sake of being busy. And in the example which I used in the emotional authority video, the majority of my clients are actually generators and MGs who are currently entrepreneurs. And when they come to me, they're always on the go and they often feel stuck around something in their business. So one thing that has been huge for them is really creating an aligned business that feels good. It's making sure that they do that gut check before implementing certain strategies or marketing activities, even if it's something that they've learned from someone who was successful in doing that thing. Because if they're second guessing it, if it feels off, then it likely won't be the most effective strategy for them. And there are always better alternatives that are going to be more enjoyable and therefore effective. It's all about using that gut response, that intuition, that inner wisdom, being your own authority and guiding your own way and really leaning into that. I also have my business mentorship clients do an audit of their current activities, using their authority to either declutter or change what doesn't feel right or aligned. And by doing this, they make sure that they gain the clarity they need to really invest their energy only on the things that are going to feel aligned. In other words, take aligned action to propel themselves forward and not look at what everyone else is doing. Really figure out what's the most aligned and what's going to be the most effective for me, right? And in doing that, they create the circumstances for an aligned business and an aligned lifestyle. And just as a reminder, there is no right or wrong way to engage with your authority. It's truly an experiment. But for simplicity's sake, I generally guide my clients to first of all bring awareness to what their authority feels like for them, and then have them practice engaging with it and recognize their sacral response whenever they have to make important decisions or even like small day-to-day decisions. And so before we move on to the next part of this video, I had another quick question for all of you with sacral authority. How do you currently make decisions and work with your sacral authority? How does it help you throughout life? I would love to hear your answers. And if you're not sure yet about how to start working with your sacral authority, don't worry, because I'm going to give you some tips coming up next. So how can you start to recognize and experiment with your sacral authority? The best way to get to know and understand your sacral authority is simply to experiment with it. Start to build awareness and observe what your sacral response feels like and journal on it. Begin to ask yourself those yes or no questions and witness what happens when you're being led to a yes and, when you're being led to a no. What physical sensations do you experience in your body? Is it a sound? Is it a gut feeling? Is it an expansive feeling or energy when it's a yes? Is it a contracting feeling or energy when it's a no? Because I feel the best way to really learn about how your own authority works and what it feels like is really just observation and experience. I can offer you the mechanics behind how it works, but even two people with sacral authority can experience it so differently. So I encourage you to experiment and observe what happens, especially if you're someone who hasn't really listened to your sacral authority or gut feeling and really intuition in the past. So it's very, very important to practice. And you can even practice using your sacral authority when you're facing decisions in the moment, whether they're big or they're small. There are really no limits for when you can rely on your sacral authority, whether it's deciding whether to start that new business or even whether to eat pizza or pasta for dinner. Another key to working with the sacral is understanding that the sacral doesn't respond to open-ended questions. It responds to simple and close-ended questions. So yes or no questions. So for example, a quote unquote bad question for a generator would be, what do you want for dinner? That just leaves so many different options, and the sacral doesn't typically respond to this, and you'll have one really indecisive generator. So a good question to ask a generator would be, do you want pizza for dinner? Where the sacral can then respond with a yes or a no, or even giving two options. So do you want pizza or do you want pasta? And the sacral will be pulled or expanded towards both or none, or one of those options. Lastly, when a generator or MG gets a sacral response that's unclear, typically I've seen this to be a no or a not right now. So I always say, just don't do it yet or come back to it another time, because the idea here is to get the clarity that you need so that you're making the right decisions for you. So there you have it. That's all we have for today for sacral authority. And if you're wanting to get that extra help to understand your sacral authority, or even just get into the depths of your own chart and see your true potential, and would like to do a human design reading, I do also offer one-to-one readings that include a 90-minute Zoom call. Plus you get a customized 35+ page human design blueprint for your own learning and reflection that you can always use as a resource guide, because it is a lot of information and I do love that you have something to go back to. So I'll leave all of that information for you in the link down in the description below. And this brings me to the end of this episode where we answer the following questions. What is sacral authority? How is sacral authority determined? Why is it beneficial for you to follow your sacral response? When do you use sacral authority in real life? And how can you start to recognize and experiment with your sacral authority? So if you enjoyed this video, I'd be so grateful if you could show me some love, hit that like button, and hit subscribe to continue learning more about the human design system. So with that said, have an amazing day or evening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.